Hello and welcome to another week with Live with Dr. McDougall. I'm Gustavo Tolosa and I am super excited about this interview with Dr. McDougall and Chef AJ. And it was going to be not only informative, but fun and entertaining. So without further ado, I want to introduce Dr. McDougall, who has some exciting news to give us. How are you doing, Dr. McDougall?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm kind of getting involved and having a little fun and meeting some people here in Oregon who are very interested in good health. In fact, I'd like to spend just a minute before we get in with our time with our great guest, our very controversial guest, and certainly somebody who's going to present a challenge for me, to say the least. But first, I want to tell you, this is May of 2019. And May 1st, we had a meeting in Salem, Oregon, at the Senate, the Senate Health Committee. And it was to hear a bill that was, I only heard about the day before. So it had been like April 30th that I heard about it. And the bill is called HB 3342. And this was put on by, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine was the initial promoter. I didn't know why I didn't hear about it till the day before, but my son sent me a notice that they were going to have a hearing. And so I got in contact with the main sponsors of this bill. What this bill is, HB, House Bill 3342 for the state of Oregon. It's a bill that asks that vegan meals be supplied as an option in hospitals as well as in prisons and other institutions for religious reasons, health reasons, whatever. They want to save the planet. They are tired of taking their diabetes pills, etc. Just make it available. And so I went without much time for preparation. I went and testified on May 1st, and I met some great people there. One in particular I want to mention, Dr. Charlie Rose, who is a doctor of osteopathic medicine. And you're going to hear more from this man. He's very talented, kind of at my age and stage in life where he really doesn't really care anymore. He just wants to get the job done. So I met him. I gave a testimony. Before I even walked into the room, I told the people who were sponsoring the bill that they were going to lose, because what's going to happen is when we get done testifying to the positive aspects of giving people an option, what's going to happen is some industrial sponsor is going to hire some dietitian or other expert to come in here and say, we don't need this bill. We already take care of such requirements for people. In other words, we already provide adequate vegan meals. Well, we all know that's not true. But I want you to listen to my testimony or the points that I made. And this, by the way, is going to come out in a mailing in a few days. So you have all the links. You'll have the link for 3342, House Bill 3342 in the state of Oregon. You'll have my testimony, which is basically I said, look, you're missing a teaching moment. Here you have an opportunity where people are sick. The example I gave is the elephant sitting on your chest. The doctor walks in, you say to the doctor, I do anything to not be in this situation again. And at this teaching moment, what they do is they serve you the very foods that brought you there in the first place. As I may have said, would like to say, and have said in the past, is the hospital service deserves a kickback from the pharmacy department and the device department and the surgery departments. They need a kickback because they continue to promote the disease after the patient arrives at the hospital with a dietary disease, which 80% of them, at least 80% of the people are in there for dietary problems, directly or indirectly, mostly directly, 80%. You'd empty hospitals. You put them out of business. This place, a town like Portland, Oregon, would close 3/4 of their hospitals if people figured out what was going on in the problems. Anyway, you're going to hear the testimony of the opposing people in this mailing, and I'm going to send to you in a couple of days. You'll have an opportunity to listen to Dr. Charlie Rose, and I want you to do it. He's well worth your trouble. I want you to note the dietitian that they sent, the dairy industry. I'm not going to say anything more, but note the fact that they didn't make the chair big enough for her. That's as unflattering as I'm going to be. But she was there to say that we don't need any better diets in our hospitals, in our prisons, etc. We're already taking care of that. Well, excuse me. Excuse me. They're not. They're serving the same food that brought the people there in the first place, and they won't even acknowledge it. So this law, unfortunately, I think is going to be lost. We're going to try again next year, be more specific. And next year, maybe I'll have a chance to add a little bit of my experience. Remember that I got SB 380 passed in California unanimously in 2011, which requires physicians to learn about human nutrition. Signed into law by Governor Jerry Brown and unanimously passed by both houses. So I've been there a long time, informed set law bills on breast cancer, etc. And I know how they play the game. And I'm getting better at it all the time, too, by the way. So next time we show up, and it'll be in probably Oregon, next time we show up, we're going to be better prepared. We certainly have the talent on our side. We have the right intentions on our side. We got every reason to do the right thing except to support the financial interests of the livestock industry. And they're getting beat all over the world, all the way from the Canadian Dietary Guidelines, which basically excluded the meat, dairy, and egg industry, to European countries that finally got it. You know, the United States, as you well have seen, has become a unique, laughable country in the sense of its unwillingness to support things such as environmental changes, such as progress, such as distributing wealth. That's probably not the right way to say it, but at least making fellow human beings have a livable life. The U.S. stands out as objecting, considering the rest of the countries in the world. Can I say I wasn't going to talk politics? All right, well, let's go on. I want you aware of this. You're going to get a mailing on this. I think it's worthwhile listening to the links. Just remember, I had like less than 24 hours to prepare for this and really didn't know what they were trying to do in terms of accomplishing the goal, getting vegan food. What they really need to do, and I think next time, is they need to specify. I think they need to do another SB 380 bill, but they need to do it in Oregon, they need to do it in Michigan, they need to do it in New York, a bill that forces doctors to learn about what people eat. And then it'll be a no-brainer once doctors realize that heart disease and most cancers and diabetes, obesity and constipation, et cetera, are all due to the food. It's one simple solution. And I think there are enough of doctors and nurses and other health professionals who have still maintained their moral compass, their honesty, to the point where we can get the changes made. We have to get the professionals educated. We have to get the right doctor or the right diets in the hospitals. Diet therapy needs to be a fundamental part of the hospital care of a patient because it solves the problems. And I told them that in my testimony. I said, right now, patients are getting excuses and pills and devices and surgery. What they want is they want a solution to their problems. This bill has an opportunity. This bill, SB 3342 in Oregon, has an opportunity to at least open the door, at least start the conversation between the patient and the doctor, plus doctors like me who practice diet therapy. We have a chance to prescribe, when we go to the hospital for our patients, a therapeutic diet so they won't have to come out with 10 different drugs and 3 different surgeries and no hope for the future. So let's just say there are 2,000 diet therapy doctors in the country. They can't practice medicine because all that's available is the foods promoted by the meat and dairy industry that brought the people there in the first place, as well as a bunch of drugs that are criminally expensive, and everybody knows that, and everybody talks about it, and a bunch of surgeries that many times shouldn't be done. Again, you know that I know there are some real medical miracles out there, and we don't want to throw the baby out with the wash water, so to speak. But the present treatment of chronic illnesses such as rheumatoid arthritis, other inflammatory diseases, multiple sclerosis, chronic obesity, heart disease, breast, colon, prostate cancer. Oh man, I could take the rest of the show. But I have a great guest. I have a guest today that I tell you, if we can get her a little excited, I'm going to do what I can to get her a little bit excited. We're going to have a fun time together because this woman is one of the most powerful people I have ever met. Now, I have to admit that it didn't start out as a friendly relationship, maybe 15 years ago. we met, and I'm going to give her a chance to tell about our meeting from her point of view. In fact, I have to say, the first time she met, she called me a misogynist. I said, I don't even know what that is. She said, well, that's a man that looks at women a certain way. And I said, well, thanks for telling me. I didn't know what that was. So that is how our conversation started out with our next guest of her labeling me as a misogynist. Do I have that correct, AJ? Chef AJ?
Oh my God, you are hilarious.
Wasn't that how we met? I mean, we met on a stage, and you decided that you were going to give me a title, like some people do these days. They just give people a name.
If I remember correctly, that wasn't the first time we met, but that was the first time that you actually invited me to speak of the 3 times at one of your wonderful in-person programs, and I was upset because you would not come to my presentation.
Well, I had to see patients. Excuse me.
I understand.
They have. I had to cook the meals and clean the bathrooms and see patients.
That was 10 years ago. You sure have a really good memory. Anybody that questions your cognitive abilities, you sure remember stuff really good.
There are things I remember, things I like, and I really did. I fell in love with you over the years.
Oh my God, thank you.
In a very professional way. I don't want Charles to get upset now.
No, he won't.
Even though I'm as handsome as Charles, I don't want him to get upset.
You are. And that, Dr. McDougall, I just have to say, without you, so many of us wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. And I wouldn't be a skinny bitch without your work. I mean, everything I teach is based on what you have been shouting from the rooftops for 40 years. And somebody has to carry your torch. And you are so right when it comes to what humans are supposed to eat. And I don't know why people don't get your message, because it's simple that I had it actually printed on this shirt.
But do you have a tattoo on your chest?
I have a tattoo on my back, not on my chest.
Oh, well, you need one. Got starch.
Yeah.
All right, got it.
Okay.
That'll go down in infamy, by the way. Anyway, that's great. You did that. But, AJ, when I presented to you, let's just guess we met 10 to 15 years ago, my attitude was then is all I have to do is tell people the truth. And all I have to do is make them aware of where the problems are, showing the basis, the logic, and so on, that they would naturally just follow my lead. But I was wrong, and I'm still wrong. And what I found out from people like yourself is the truth only goes so far. No, it doesn't, somehow it loses the appeal when it comes to transferring that to people's lives. But you've been able to do that, Chef AJ. You have been able to take some words that you believe to be true, and I'm glad that many of my words you've decided have value, and you've been able to get right in people's faces. And I'm talking about what you call clients, and you've been able to get people to see the real value, to deal with stumbling blocks. I want to tell me what it is about you, because you've been around a lot. In fact, I do want to mention that AJ has one of the best lectures I have ever heard, and it should be up on our website, that she gave for our group about 4 years ago. And I don't exaggerate. If you want to learn about this woman and what she has been through and why she deserves to be called an expert and why she deserves to talk to us about things that are important to her, like how do you get people to change, AJ?
Right. Well, I think, Dr. McDougall, you find the hook, because honestly, there was no need to reinvent the wheel, because everything that needs to be said about weight loss was already written in your book, the McDougall Program for Maximum Weight Loss, the best book on weight loss ever written. The only thing I think I bring to the table that maybe you didn't is somebody that really lived it. Fat from the age of 5, obese at 160 pounds at the age of 11, not even 5 feet tall, and 200 pounds in my 20s. And because I lived 50 years in an overweight or obese body, I think people could relate to me, because it wasn't until I implemented what you teach in that book, which is basically what I teach. My ultimate weight loss program is your dietary program. The only difference is that I offer these people daily support. That's what I have to charge for, not for the information. And so I think that's, it's interesting, because our mutual friend, Dr. Doug Lyle, gave a lecture on Monday night. and he was talking about how weight loss is the #1 goal of all people in the whole world, that people would rather be thin than rich. And I've been an ethical vegan for 42 years. And honestly, I've influenced very few people just by being an animal rights vegan or an environmental vegan or even a health vegan. But once I realized that this is not only the best diet for the animals, the planet, and human health, but it's unparalleled for weight loss, that was the hook that I was able to draw more people in. And plus the fact that I lived it.
Isn't it interesting that we live in a world where overnutrition is a bigger problem than undernutrition? And, you know, I don't know tell me about some of the people you've worked with and how you've seen them change and what have been the triggers to get people to finally see this as less trouble than it's worth. It's worth more than the trouble you have to put into it. Can you kind of relate some personal experiences as to how you get folks who are, want help, but really don't see themselves as being able to accomplish these changes in their life, but you've helped them do it.
Right. Well, one of the things I've done is like your wife, Mary, who's created thousands of delicious recipes, is I haven't created that many, but I've tried to create really delicious recipes that support this way of eating so that they wouldn't feel deprived. And I've tried to make the recipes as easy, accessible, delicious as possible using things like the Instant Pot. So that's one thing I've done to help people. I've worked with people now, nowhere near the amount of people you've worked with. I estimate just a couple of thousand, but people that have lost between 1 and 300 pounds using your McDougall Maximum Weight Loss Program with my support and encouragement, and lives change. I mean, our self-esteem as people, as women in particular, is so intricately tied to our weight. It's unfortunate that this is how it is in society, but it's true. And once people start to lose any amount of weight and start to feel better and have increased self-esteem, they just want to go further. Plus, as you know from all the programs you've won, it's delicious. And once you neuroadapt or get used to this type of diet, why would you want to go back? The food's so good. And what you've provided, the missing piece, which is missing in so many of the other plant-based diets, is the starch. No starch, no satiety. These women have done for years what you've taught against, trying to live on fruits and vegetables because they thought they were being good, eating foods of that low of a caloric density to lose weight, ultimately ending up binging because of the restriction. And it wasn't just the calorie restriction, but the restriction of starch. And if I have anything to offer, it's to continue your legacy, which is just eat a damn potato. Potatoes make you thin. Potatoes are healthy. And it drives me crazy when people bash carbs in general and starch in particular and potatoes. I'm so tired of this. Aren't you?
Oh, well, you know what? I'm past being tired. I guess I've gotten to the point where there don't seem to be any more boundaries as far as trying to express myself. And you must feel the same way, the same frustration, because you struggled for so long. Let's just guess 4 decades. Mm-hmm. And then you discovered, through a lot of effort, you were vegan, you were still overweight, you still had a lot of issues as far as your health goes. And then you discovered a new way of looking at things. Since that time, and let me just summarize, you discovered the importance of starch, you discovered about junk vegan foods, and you discovered about the effect of oil, the fat you eat, the fat you wear. And that's been almost a decade. You went, from what I remember the first time we got together, you went to a very trim woman, and I have commented a couple of times, which probably doesn't fit well into today's social interactions between men and women, but I've commented just how well you fill a dress.
Yeah.
And
it's all your fault. Thank you. You're the one that made this possible, Dr. McDougall. I swear to God, because I wasn't eating oil. This is the interesting thing. And I know there's going to be haters on this, but the truth is that there was a period of time where I was not, I understood about the oil, and I had stopped eating oil on, I believe it was August 1st, 2008. I even stopped eating sugar and salt, but I was eating nuts. And I wasn't eating that many of them because I bought into the hype that, without nuts, you'll die. You've got, your omega-3s, all this stuff. And I was eating only an ounce of nuts a day. And nobody believes me, except for maybe you and a few other people, that until I stopped eating all overt fats, nuts, seeds, and avocado, I could not lose weight. And our mutual friend, Dr. Rosanna Alviera, has talked about this, how there's genetic differences in how much fat people, especially women and overweight women, can eat and actually lose weight or maintain that weight loss. But until I really believe what you have said for 40 years, the fat you eat is the fat you wear, I could not lose weight. Once I did that, the weight literally melted off, and it has been effortless. I'm at this vegan leadership conference right now, and everybody is saying, oh my God, she eats more than anyone. And I do, because I don't eat the nut-based dressings and all. I don't put the walnuts on my salad, and I don't put the avocado on my tacos. Instead, I took an Uber to Trader Joe's and bought 12 pounds of Japanese sweet potatoes, and I have the hotel cook these for me. So you are, if I'm getting to get a tattoo, it's going to be Dr. McDougall was right. That's the tattoo I'm going to get.
Well, thank you. I would look forward to seeing that tattoo. All right. So you've been around long enough, and you've been out in the front lines, to say the least, and you've been emotionally involved in people. How are you feeling about the resurgence of the low-carb diets?
That is, I had a morbidly obese brother who was a physician, who I actually sent him your book in, I believe it was the 80s, even before I was following your book. And I remember he sent it back to me with a note saying, I can't eat carbs, they make me fat. And I'm thinking, you're already 300 pounds, so something else has to be making you fat. And what's interesting is the only time he ever lost weight in his life was twice, and it was for a wedding. Once when he went to Duke University and did the rice diet, and once when he did the Dean Ornish program. So it breaks my heart on many levels, because I know that people do lose weight on these keto, paleo, and low carb diets in the short term, but I also see them mortgaging their health in the long term. And I see them as completely unsustainable. Eating potatoes, rice, beans with some fruits and vegetables, it's delicious and it is sustainable. And it also breaks my heart because when they're eating low carb, they're eating high fat and high protein, which means they're killing animals and destroying our planet. So it bothers me as much as it bothers you.
So that's precisely why I invited you on the show, is because I wanted you to tell us how you take care of, how you personally deal with somebody like your brother who's 300 pounds.
Well, he died, so I don't deal with him anymore. Dr. McDougall, in some ways, I'm a Dr. McDougall light. Everything you say, I feel, but sometimes I feel that it would be socially inappropriate to say what I really feel. And I hope that as I'm almost 60, and I hope that as I age, I'll be less afraid to say how I really feel to people. But at the same time, they're teaching us at this vegan leadership conference to meet people where they are and not alienate them. So it's quite a battle. They're wrong. I think I need to go to medical school now so that I can really say, as Dr. Chef AJ, you are wrong. And it's those books, Eat Fat, Get Thin. It just kills me that these are the best sellers.
Well, you're not too old to go to medical school. Both my son's class as well as my class back in late 1960s had people are well, not quite 70, but people in their 50s to go to medical school. And I, considering how most doctors practice, I think a good 20 years you can do more good than doctors put together. And I'm leaving out the harm. Yeah. All right. So again, getting back to the problem that I have, which is getting people like your brother. You say he's gone?
He died, actually. He had diabetes, then heart disease, died of pancreatic cancer just after he retired, after his 60th birthday. He was #1 in his graduating class at Princeton. He was one of the smartest people, but he just couldn't manage his weight.
All right. Well, let's see. That's too personally involved, your own brother, and the troubles you went through. Somebody similar, where would you start with them? They came to you and they said, AJ, I believe you. I've got diabetes. I don't want to be sick anymore. I don't want to be way overweight anymore. Where do you tell them to start? And what do you tell? I know you have classes, and I want to get into those. And I know you've written a book that will be very helpful to people. And I know you run ongoing support classes, which I want to talk about too. But let's just make it what if we're just talking to one person out there today who says, look, I've been involved in the low carb diets. I've been involved in the extremely high vegetable diets and so on, and nothing seems to be working for me. I want to try, I'll eat starch, but I'm afraid of starch. And good grief, AJ, I'll put I got a whole big bank account here. I'm going to put in your hands, and you can spend as much of my money as you want. But what I want you to do is to get me over the hump.
Well, one of the things I honestly do is refer them to your live-in program, because sometimes people have to go through a period of experimentation in a controlled environment to really believe it. Sometimes it's harder to do it on their own. So I always refer people to your website and even to your program, where they can actually, like Doug Lyle says, run an experiment for 10 days or a week or something. One of the places, depending on how much time I have with people, is I tell them to watch Forks Over Knives. Almost everybody has Netflix now. That often is a good resource. You know, and I say, look at me. You know, I say, I used to weigh 200 pounds not eating starch, and now that's all I eat. And you know, the proof of the pudding is, I guess, in the eating. And you've got it. It's just so weird that people still have that fear. You know, I did that Real Truth About Weight Loss Summit. You were one of the experts. All the experts agreed. But then people at the end of the day is like, but don't potatoes make you fat? No, they make you thin. And the more potatoes you eat, the thinner you get.
Well, I can tell you're frustrated. I can tell people are looking for more than simplicity. Let's talk a little bit about your personal health, because people need people like yourself. Coming to our clinic is a good idea, sure, but they still have to go home. We're not going to keep them forever.
Well, that's the thing, the recidivism. That's one of the reasons I created my Ultimate Weight Loss Program, to give people the ongoing support when they left places like your place or True North, so that they would have a group of like-minded individuals to connect with, because the community that you find yourself in is going to make or break you. And so many people do this. It's often women with families and children, whose children don't want to eat this way and whose husband don't want to eat this way. And if you don't have some kind of sense of community, like you have community and your McDougall, your free McDougall boards, that's another great place where people can go for a sense of community. But I think without the community, if your family and friends aren't doing this, it's going to be really lonely, and it's going to be really hard to keep going, because you know the recidivism rate is really high. When we lock people up at your place or any kind of program, they thrive. But then they go out into the real world, where there's temptation at every corner, M&Ms at pet stores and hardware stores. It's hard.
Well, we have actually data similar to what Dean Ornish finds and what Neil Bernard finds. Our data from OHSU, the medical school in Portland, shows that the compliance rate, when taught properly like you do, you know, it really surprised me, and particularly surprised my principal investigator at OHSU, was that the compliance rate was 85% of people were compliant at the end of the year. Because once they learn the program from somebody like yourself, AJ, and once their eyes are open and once they see the sense of it, unless, you know, they're plagued by our usual problems of looking for quick pleasures and going back to our addictions and bad habits. I mean, once people's eyes are open, you know, we find 85% will comply for a year.
That's amazing.
Well, I know you're getting similar results. In fact, it must be even better because you personally follow up with people. Tell us about some of the programs again. No, I tell you what, before we get into that, people object because I keep asking all of our guests what they eat, and most of them won't answer me. But let's start by what you are eating in your own personal life. And then I want to go on and I want to talk about what you do personally to help people and how they can get involved with somebody with your overwhelming personality. Somebody who just knows what it is, says what it is, doesn't take any nonsense, shows yourself as proof, and you care. I mean, I even though you may be combative, may not be the word. Let's just say, I can't think of a word that would not be misunderstood.
Argumentative?
When they get all done with you, they know that you care about them and that you really do know what you're doing, regardless of the steps you take in approaching them. So first, let's hear what you eat, and second of all, how do you convince others to eat just sweet potatoes?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I teach them ways to make sweet potatoes delicious, and one of the best ways to make sweet potatoes delicious is first roast them. And then you chill them. Something happens to them once you refrigerate them. And then when you slice them, smash them with your hand and put them in the air fryer. You think you've died and gone to heaven, because this is called sweet potato toast. And it has the smell and the texture and the mouthfeel of toast. but it's sweet and creamy. And so I make the food taste really, really delicious. So what I eat in a day, and maybe I'll do some more videos of that. It doesn't change very much because like you've mentioned, you and Mary sort of eat the same thing every day, oatmeal for breakfast, leftovers for lunch. I kind of eat the same thing every day just because it's cheaper, it's easier, I don't have to think about it. But I still follow the McDougall Maximum Weight Loss Program. I've never moved on to the starch solution. And so there really isn't any disagreement in what I eat and what I teach, except for I identify with the diagnosis of food addict, which means that for me, and this isn't for everyone because I completely agree with you, Dr. McDougall, I always tell people, if you can do a more liberal program and get the results you want, do it. I personally do not eat sugar and salt, not because I think they're horrible or bad or evil or won't help people lose weight or reverse heart disease. But for me, as a lifelong food addict, that little bit of stimulation in my food makes my brain go, wow, this is good. This is really good. I want to eat more. I want to eat more. I want to eat more. So I personally avoid sugar, flour, and salt. So I do strict McDougall maximum weight loss. The only thing I do is maybe I eat a little bit more vegetables than you would recommend because I am a volume eater. I want to eat huge quantities, huge pounds of food, like 8 to 10 per day. So I always start my meal with some vegetables or a large salad. But believe me, I am on a starch-based diet by calories. I estimate I eat 3 to 4 pounds of starch a day, mostly in the forms of potatoes and sweet potatoes because that's my personal favorite. But I don't avoid grains, and I eat them. I eat ad libitum. I just do. Read the McDougall program for maximum weight loss. Do what the book says, and you will have the results you want. But you got to do it. You can't just read the book.
How much suffering are you doing?
I don't suffer at all. Oh my God. I mean, here's the thing. Potatoes are the most satisfying food in the world, potatoes and sweet potatoes. There's a doctor named Susanna Holt. I've been trying to reach her to interview her, who created this thing called the satiety index, much different than the glycemic index. And they found that potatoes are the most satiating, satisfying food there is. And when you eat them, you're so full you're so satisfied emotionally and mentally and physically that you don't have cravings for all these unhealthy foods. It's only when you put the peanut sauce on the potato or fry it in oil that it doesn't work. And that's the thing. People blame the carbs for getting fat when it's the oil and the butter and the cheese and the peanut sauce and the tahini dressing that they ate with it that's making them fat. You know, the fat you eat, that's going to be the next shirt. The fat you eat is the fat you wear because, I didn't want to believe that because I like eating fat, more high calorie, more dopamine. But once you get used to the lower fat diet, it's easy. And when you see how much food you get to eat, I don't understand why everybody isn't doing this.
Yeah, and that's the frustration that I had 50 years ago when I walked into my chief of medicine's office. It was actually 1978. And I explained to my chief of medicine that I found out the cause of 80% of illnesses I was treating. And that most of them, if you stop the food that was making them sick, they get better. And that was, as I say, in 1977 when I graduated from, 1978, when I graduated from my residency. And I thought there'd be a line of people standing outside my door all the way from my office in Kailua to the Honolulu International Airport. Well, that line never showed up. And it must be very frustrating for you to see the obvious solution to so many problems, not just your personal health, not like you say, being as thin as possible without suffering terribly and making yourself sick, to solve your illnesses, to not have to buy into the drug industry that one day is telling you the pills will cure you and the next day you're hearing they'll kill you. It's just, you need to get away from that. You see it clearly, Chef AJ, and it must be painful for you. And as you get older, I can tell you, you'll be less reserved.
Yeah, I hope so. And, I think that people on some level want to do this, and I don't know why they don't. I remember interviewing Dr. Tom Campbell, and one of the things he said is you can't mix today's diet with the new diet. So in other words, I think people love this concept of like this magical buffet that we get, this all-you-can-eat system of being able to eat as much as you want, as often as you want, whenever you want to, comfortably full of the right foods. I think they like that idea in theory, but they still want to incorporate some of the things from their old diet. They like that idea with a little bit of cheese, a little bit of wine, a little bit of peanut sauce. And then when you do the way we eat, this ad libitum approach, but then still include those very, very calorically dense foods, it doesn't work. And so the way that you teach people to eat is just the way our ancestors ate. Like, I love your lecture on the history of the starch solution, about all the successful populations throughout history. And they basically ate the way that you teach people to eat. That hasn't changed. What's changed is the food.
Yeah, I watch back. It's really troubling for me. I don't know why I'm relating this to you, except for the fact that it keeps coming up. I'll watch historical movies like The Gladiator or Braveheart. I just rewatched those, two great movies. And I'll watch other movies of time periods, and I'll go, they didn't have any global warming back then. Yeah. And I'll think, we've been around, say this segment, say you're watching Outlander or some other historical series. You go, well, those people lived for 400, 500, 600, 700 years and didn't do anything bad to the planet. And they had a future. And then I think about how in the short period of time we've been around, how we changed things. So anyway, that's been kind of hitting me in the face, the fact that we've been around as humanoids, say, for 600,000, 800,000 years, as Homo sapiens, at least 200,000 years. And maybe you go back to 3-4 million years when you look at earlier interpretations of what the humanoid was. So anyway, it's frustrating. It's really kind of frustrating for me, AJ, to be quite honest with you, to watch all of this human history. And you can see it in the movies today. The new Robin Hood movie is really great too. And then think, oh man, it's disappearing right in front of us. The next news story.
You know what frustrates me, Dr. McDougall, as much as people not believing that starch is the center of the human diet and the key to satiety, is the resurgence in the popularity of these weighing and measuring programs that people pay a lot of money for, learning to weigh and measure their food on the plate, that not only limits starch, but completely restricts it in some cases. Sometimes they let you have beans and they tell you to weigh 7 ounces of vegetables. And Dr. Lyle was saying in his lecture Monday night that this started about 50 years ago. And since humans, which by the way, are the only species that ever count calories or weigh and measure their food, since they started weighing and measuring their food, we've done nothing but get fatter. And recently I was watching Turner Classic Movies, and I watched 2 movies from the 50s, Breakfast at Tiffany's and Guys and Dolls. And I noticed, now you could say, well, Audrey Hepburn's a movie star, she has to be thin. But have you ever noticed that even the extras in the movies from the 50s, there weren't any overweight people back then? So what's happening? It is frustrating that this is what people believe, that they have to either eat animal protein to be slender, or weigh and measure their food and count calories, carbs, or points. When they understand what you teach, which is what to eat, they don't have to worry about why they eat or when they eat or how much they eat. I don't think people give it a chance. I really don't think, like they say they're following McDougall, and then you look at their food diaries and it's like, that's not on the program. You once said to me, Dr. McDougall, in a private class where you spoke to my class, you said you heard someone say that all dieters are liars. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, that's Walter Kempner.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just, well, I guess the point I was trying to bring out, and you did it well with the movies that were, 70, 80 years ago, is that, back then we didn't talk about the impact of our behaviors on the planet. And just over the last, I first recognized it in 2004. So it's been 15 years for me, and it's probably been another 30 years for other scientists. And just to see the speed of change, when you look back at these historical movies of 80 years ago, or about civilizations of 2,000 years ago, it is just absolutely puts it in a perspective where you go, my goodness, this is crazy. Anyway, I'm going to give you one last chance, Chef AJ, to tell us about your programs, because I want people to be in touch with you by website, by internet programs. I want them to come to Las Vegas at the end of the summer. I want to hear about how people can get to know one of my good friends and somebody I've gained tremendous respect for over the last 10 years, mainly because of her way of communicating, something I really can relate to. She just says it like it is. And if you don't get it, she's glad to discuss the facts with you, so to speak. But give her a chance to help you. How, AJ, Chef AJ, how do they get in touch with you by internet? How do they get in touch with you and get help over the internet? And how do they come to your wonderful presentation in Las Vegas at the end of 2019?
Absolutely. So my website is my name, Chef AJ. It's literally Chef AJ website. And any information on almost all of my programs are there. I have an ultimate weight loss program. And the conference that Dr. McDougall's talking about, it is my dream that one day he will speak there. It's every Labor Day weekend at the Tuscany Resort in Las Vegas. This year we have a wonderful team of people like Dr. Doug Lyle, Dr. Alan Goldhammer, High Carb Hannah, Dr. Tom Campbell, and from the Cleveland Clinic, Dr. Michael Roizen. And it's a very, very fun.
Oh, wow. You're going to have fun with Dr. Roizen.
Yeah, you told me. I remember I asked you if I should have him. You told me he was good.
Oh, yeah, he's good. In fact, I wish I could make available for you easily the evening he came and talked to us. Michael Roizen has made some wonderful things, wonderful changes at Cleveland Clinic. I don't believe he started out with as being a good friend of Dr. Esselstyn's, but they have become good friends over time. And he came to our advanced study weekend, which is weekends I used to run. And the reason I brought you there, I used to run it for people who disagreed with me, but not so much that they were way out of line and unbelievable. And so under those terms, I invited you because you had some important, different things to contribute. And I invited Mike Roizen. And it was a very interesting evening together we had. I would say the 20 minutes I spent questioning him changed his life. So let's see what he teaches this time. But where I got him is Mike Roizen. He showed a video about the Mad Cowboy that was on the Dr. Oz show, which promoted a vegan diet, promoted Rip Esselstyn's diet. And then he turned around, and his next few slides were about the importance of a paleo diet and also a low-carb diet. And so I started out with Mike Roizen, which I hope if he deviates from the truth, you pointed out to him too. Hey, Mike, what do you really believe? Or do you not know what you believe? Or, have you finally figured out now that you started listening to Dr. Esselstyn and, some of the other people at Cleveland Clinic that know better. So you ought to have a great time with Mike Roizen.
He seems like a really nice guy.
He's an amazing, powerful, articulate man who's willing to change when he sees it.
And he's invited me to speak at his conference too, which is like, I feel like I'm just small potatoes, no pun, small potatoes, but he's having a conference with Dr. Rosanne Alviera in December, and they asked me to speak, and I'm like, whoa. I hope you'll get back in the game, Dr. McDougall, because nobody had events like you did.
I am back in the game, but I can't play the part of the game that you play, which is a personality that people can relate to, who just is going to tell them what to do, how to do it. I don't have that kind of empathy, that kind of personality. These are the facts. This is how you do it. Fortunately, I was married to a wonderful person, just like you had the opportunity to marry Charles. Somehow the forces in nature in both of our relationships got together and made two bads into a right. The bads I'm talking about are you and I.
Of course. And believe me, when people say to me with a scowl, you just like Dr. McDougall, and I'm like, that's a compliment, You're just like Dr.
Just tell him you have somebody like Mary at home. His name's Charles.
Exactly. I wanted to tell your viewers that both Dr. McDougall and I are going to be presenters at a wonderful conference in November put on by Remedy. And it's I don't know exactly where it is in Washington, Dr. McDougall, but it's not too far from you in Portland. Scavania Lodge or something like that.
I don't know that I've been invited.
Oh no, you've been invited and you've accepted. You're on the website.
Okay.
And your son is coming too.
Oh, good. Well, no, I'm out and active now. Like I say, you can watch my testimony from it'd be like 7 days ago. It was on May 1st, 2019, in front of the Senate committee in Salem at the Capitol. I'm back into the game now. I don't know what I need some help, AJ. That's the thing, and that's why I value so much our relationship and my relationship with Gustavo and our team, which includes Novik and Doug Lyle and Anthony Lim and Heather McDougall, and I know I left a few good people out, but we have a world to change, and making friendships with powerful people like yourself is crucial. I want to thank you for your contribution. As I always want to end by thanking Dr. Tolosa, my good friend from Argentina. Got it right this time, Gustavo?
He disappeared. Oh, there he is.
There he is. Anyway, he's
Yeah.
everybody's on the move. Gustavo's on the move. You're on the move, AJ. I understand you moved your home from California, parts unknown.
Yep.
And I just moved, so maybe we're moving into
We're all
we're all on the move.
We can influence a whole new community because we all live in 3 different geographical areas now.
I agree.
Yeah.
And boy, I tell you, we just need to speed it up. I see a lot of changes happening in the world really fast, and there are people who are trying to catch up. The question is, do we have the will?
Well, we certainly have the diet.
Do we have the knowledge? Do we have the will to fix the problem?
Exactly. We have the diet if the people will just take your advice and follow it.
Well, we have a small part to contribute to this the salvation of whatever.
This is the answer to global thing right here.
That would do it. The sweet potato would do it, or any kind of potato or tuber would do it. And there are thousands of different tubers that the human being would live on successfully, more successfully than they do now on their livestock-based diet, far more successfully in all forms, military, athletics, personal appearance for reproduction, etc., whatever you name it. You switch from livestock to live starches. It's just like night and day. It's like switching from the air in Shanghai, China, to the air out here in Portland. You get to breathe again.
Yep.
So thank you again very much.
Well, you guys.
Back in a couple of weeks. We have another very controversial guest in a couple of weeks. Anything else you want to tell us, AJ?
I just love you, Dr. McDougall, and I thank you for all you've done for the movement, for the world. I think you're going to be like Jesus Christ. People are really going to appreciate you once you're gone.
Well, I want to say something about that. Is that I want you all to remember my mentors. I've been a conduit, as some of my close friends have recognized. I've been a conduit that carried on the information from the real pioneers, and those being Roy Swank from OHSU on multiple sclerosis, Dennis Burkett, the famous fiber man who discovered that there were none of the American diseases where he worked in Uganda, Nathan Pritikin, who popularized a low-carb diet, was probably the smartest man that I have ever come in contact with personally, was Nathan Pritikin, and then Walter Kempner from Duke, who did the rice diet. So, really nothing new. I just happened to have been able to carry the message for a couple of years when these folks were lost, so that I could give it to you and Tom Campbell and my son Craig. And I feel just fortunate that I was able to have the interest and the energy to save the truth from this generation. Not that the truth doesn't go back for tens of thousands of years, it does, but from the generation of our modern times, from these men, I was able to encapsulate what they had to teach. So when you compliment me, I appreciate it, AJ, but you know what? I didn't invent this. And I think it gains much more credibility knowing I didn't invent it. There are people, some of our colleagues out there, will tell you that somehow God came down and whispered in their ear as to what the right diet is to save humanity. No God or anybody else whispered it in my ear. My mentors taught me this, and so did a lot of other lifetime experiences. They're out there for you too, folks. And I hope you play your part like Gustavo and AJ and myself and the rest of the team are doing. Yeah, it's fun. Never give up. I can't imagine. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.